Wow, okay, where to start? Summer Sizzler 2025, just come off the air. Dave Bradshaw here with Rev Pro owner and booker, Andy Quildan. So much happened. Some of it great, some of it bad. One thing in particular I don't especially want to talk about, but we're going to have to. But let's start on a positive note, Andy, with the main event. Unbelievable for the Undisputed British Women's Championship, the biggest night of Safire Reed's career. And although she came up short in the end against Mercedes Mone here in Wolverhampton, wow, what a match.
Yeah, look, we always talk about Mercedes Mone, the Mone match, how it translates to becoming the money match, and how the eyes of the wrestling world are watching you when you're competing against Mercedes Mone. Tonight was absolutely no different for Safire Reed. And look, I think history is obviously going to remember this run of Mercedes kindly, but history is also going to remember the string of opponents who she's competed against for that Undisputed British Women's Championship. I think there is such a thing as winning and losing, and I think Safire Reed is a prime example of that today, because she took Mercedes to her limit. I think perhaps maybe more so. Mercedes had a lot on her plate lately, going into All In, and perhaps she wasn't as focused on Safire Reed. And of course, she only had 7 days to understand that Safire Reed is her opponent as well for this match. But I think she maybe could have been accused of taking it a little bit lightly at the start of the contest. And Safire Reed soon made a believer out of Mercedes Mone. So I just thought it was a fantastic showing from Safire Reed. I think she proved what we all know. She proved that she's one of the very best to do it, and she proved that she's not just potential anymore, and I think because of that, we're going to see bright things for Safire Reed, and what direction that goes is going to be very interesting, because obviously there's a lot of question marks surrounding the Cutthroat Collective. We saw them all frank her down to the ring tonight.
But more controversially, we saw them attack Monet at the end of the match.
Well, I was going to say, we saw Safire Reed send them to the back.
Yeah.
And then
they came back at their own.
They came back on their own accord. But then you did see Safire Reed putting the members out to safety. Of course, Kanji was there to help out Mercedes, and that was great to see the bond between Mercedes Mone and Kanji. It's just fantastic to see. So, I think the whole thing is a very, very interesting and intriguing prospect, and it's going to be interesting to see where everything goes from here. And that's what I love about shows like this, when we come into shows and it feels like it's, because it's the Summer Sizzler or the anniversary show or an uprising, a high stakes, it feels like it's definitive, it feels like it's defining, it feels like it's ending, but really it just poses a lot more questions. So obviously coming out of this, we're going to ask who's next to Mercedes Mone. We're also going to ask...
That was my next question.
Of course it was. And we're also going to ask, luckily I'm good at your job and my job, so I can, okay, it's the little Gideon Greywood.
You're good at swerving when I pass you difficult wrestling.
But yeah, and we're going to be asking questions about Safire Reed, Cutthroat Collective, and of course, Kanji, relationship with Mercedes Mone. It's a good time,
That was a good time. Something else that happened on the show, not quite such a good time. And actually, you got more animated about it than I've seen you about something in a very long time, I think, because Ricky Knight Jr. became the new Undisputed British Heavyweight Champion. We know the way he's conducted himself over the past half year or more. And again, we saw it in the match tonight. Really just disgraceful on so many levels. And after he'd won the match, the way he confronted you up at the commentary table was pretty disgusting too. But, as the owner of the company, what are your feelings about Ricky Knight Jr. being the holder of the most prestigious title in independent wrestling?
Listen, I made no secret about the fact that I admire Ricky Knight Jr. as a professional wrestler. I think people forget how young he was when he got into this and when he burst onto the scene here in Revolutionary Pro Wrestling, and how Ricky Knight Jr. had to do a lot of things, look, he carries the weight of a family name, but, he had to... The story of Ricky Knight's a very interesting one, and we can kind of go back to, where he's just a kid, a teenager, trying to, make his way, and, messaging me constantly and not getting replies, as most people don't, but being persistent enough to keep going and going and going. And it's very easy when you come from a family like the Knights who got their own territory and got their own circuit, and they've got their guys they use and whatever. It's very easy to become comfortable and stay in that environment. And of course, they come with a reputation as well, the Knights. And Ricky Knight Jr. wanted to be the person to kind of break that mold, break that reputation. But he was a person who actively went out and reached for these other promotions and to kind of come out, and he wanted to be, he wanted to spread his wings and he wanted to prove that he could fly on his own, basically. And that's quite admirable of him. So, there's many positives that I can say about Ricky Knight Jr. I feel like his feelings and his thoughts about his first run as undisputed British heavyweight champion, I don't think it justifies. He's upset that he had his broken arm, and he lost the championship without actually losing a match. But he did get a rematch for that championship, which he chooses to gloss over, And I understand that frustration, though, and I understand the fact that, just when he was on the roll of his life, when he got his first 5-star match and all the stuff all that attention and the stuff that comes with it, it felt like just as he built up that momentum, everything suddenly stopped, and no one knew why. We weren't seeing the same Ricky Knight. It's because obviously he broke his arm. He came back too soon with that broken arm, and that's one gripe he might have. His rematch of when he came back too soon for that broken arm, and he wound up having to get surgery, and then he was out for longer. And I understand the frustration, but to blame it on us, the Revolution Pro Wrestling, to blame it on Michael Oku for being the person to step up, and he didn't take Ricky Knight Jr.'s spot. He took a spot which was occupied by Ricky Knight Jr. at that time, but there's room for Michael Oku and Ricky Knight Jr. We saw their match today. It was absolutely phenomenal. One of the most dramatic and intense and physical British heavyweight championship matches I can remember, and one that everyone in the crowd, they were up on their feet.
Everyone just lost themselves in the experience. Right?
And that's what professional wrestling is. That's what it's all about. And it was fantastic. But you can win with class and you can lose with class. And Ricky Knight Jr. did not win with class tonight. And yeah, we had words afterwards, but it wasn't me being angry at Ricky Knight Jr. representing Revolution Pro Wrestling as a champion. It's about more the manner.
Yeah, and it's not the talent, it's the attitude.
The attitude and the way he responded, the way he got on the microphone afterwards. And, it was very much an I told you so moment. And obviously, again, usually as a threat on the career of Shah Samuels, which is a very realistic proposition now. That you and I both have an affinity with Shah Samuels, and the last thing I want to do is see him retire. But, look at Ricky Knight Jr. Look at the mentality, the monster. He called it a championship mentality. I called it a monster mentality that Ricky Knight Jr. has right now. And I wouldn't want to be Shah Samuels right now. I think maybe if Shah had seen that contest, maybe he would have been rethinking that promise of retiring if he's not successful at the anniversary show. So I don't know. It's very tough to put into words. And look, we're going to talk again after Sheffield, which is obviously this Sunday. So I'll probably have more to say then. But we're less than an hour after the event's finished. So everything's very raw and it is very emotional. And as well, about my admiration for Michael Oku and his championship reign, his history-making championship reign. And very much, we all love an underdog, right? And I think many people forget Michael Oku is the underdog story. I think a lot of people forget that. And I think, it was when we saw him getting booed by certain elements of the crowd at your pool as well. I think many people forgot that.
None of that is right there.
None of that tonight. No. And that says a lot. I say it says a lot, but I don't know. It's like you say, it was a great professional wrestling match, and the outcome was the outcome, but it was captivating throughout, and I think that everything from here on out is going to be captivating. It might be uncomfortable at times, but it's going to be captivating. So
Is what it is. And we move forward with excitement to, of course, Ricky Knight Jr., Charles Samuels coming up at the anniversary weekend, just a month or so, or not even a month now from now. It's getting very, very close as this summer just keeps on rolling on. It feels like the pace is accelerating all the time. I do want to talk about one more particularly emotional moment from tonight where the crowd were booing very loudly and with some justification. And that's at the end of the match between TK Cooper and Trent Seven. Cooper attacked Seven after Seven defeated him. Chuck Mambo came down to the ring. We thought he was going to try and talk Cooper off the proverbial ledge, so to speak. It was seeming like Cooper was going to snap. And then something quite frankly unbelievable happened, didn't it?
yes, Chuck Mambo joined in the assault on Trent Seven. And to me, look, it's very hard to... we don't walk in their shoes. We don't know the struggle. You know, Sunshine Machine were one of the greatest tag teams in not just revolutionary wrestling history, the British wrestling history. One of the most beloved teams in British wrestling history. But you don't have to have a long memory to think back to when they were called Escaping the Mid-Card, and it became a self-fulfilling prophecy, and they realized they had to change things up, and that's when they transformed into this machine, into this Sunshine Machine. And when you're in the trenches with someone, it kind of brings you closer to them. We've all got that someone in our life who, you know, I don't want to say they're a bit of a dick, but like, you know, we've all got that person in our life who maybe doesn't always make the right decisions, who, you know, who is not in the right frame of mind, who goes through a tough time. But as a friend, there's a real one, you know, you're there for that person from the start. You know, you're there for that person forever. It's unconditional, you know, and the bond that you create with those people strengthens those ties. And I think that Mambo and Cooper have those ties. Mambo and Cooper have that unconditional bond. And TK Cooper was saying from the start, me and Chuck Mambo are fine. We're fine. But I think there was almost a moment of realization. Look, I'd like to think that it was a spontaneous thing, and we'll find out more information soon, right? But it seemed like there was almost a moment of realization from Chuck Mambo where he was like, I'm either going to have to punch my brother, I'm going to have to fall out with my brother, or I'm going to have to do something that I don't really want to do. I can't lose that connection I've got with my friend. And I think that ultimately that's where he came down to.
Yeah, it's a great description, but it's also quite heartbreaking, I think, in the way that that's gone down. So we'll see how that develops. Look, we've got a lot more to talk about. We'll talk again, as you said, 2 days from now in Sheffield. But there is one more thing. I want to say non-positive. We're going to be back here October 18th at the Hangar in Wolverhampton with CMLL for Fantastica UK. And we announced the first talent that's going to be at that show. One of the most talked about luchadors on the planet, Mystico, going to be with us next time we're in Wolverhampton.
Absolutely right. And look, Mystico was with us last year at Fantastica Mania. His stock and the attention towards him has only risen since that point. But anyone who was there last year knows that you're seeing the authentic Mystico. You'll get the full Mystico experience. His match with Templario last year, he threw everything at him, bar the kitchen sink. It was just a spectacle to see, and it's going to be a spectacle to see on October 18th. We're back at the Hangar. It's going to be 2 shows in one day, as it has been with the Fantastica Mania the previous 2 years. There's all the added attention on CMLL at the moment, doing record business with Mystico at the helm. The biggest draw, probably the biggest draw in, probably, if not one of the biggest draws in the history of Lucha Libre, Mystico. And having that second run in CNOL, because obviously he broke all the records in the book previously, and now coming back and breaking all the records again. I think that they broke a record for straight sellouts, or it's the first time since years and years and years ago they got so many straight consecutive sellouts on a Friday night at Arena Mexico, all because of Mystico. Well, it's not all because of Mystico. it's a collaboration, but Mystico's the main attraction, the stars. It's such a huge deal for us to be able to bring Mystico to the UK. It's such a huge honour for us to be able to bring Mystico to Fantastica Mania, and it's just a sign. I get to call it a sign of our intentions with Fantastica Mania UK. We're bringing the best. We're bringing the most exciting. We're going to mix them with the real pro talent. It's going to be something different. And we're just going to have fun. We're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to celebrate professional wrestling. We're going to celebrate the diversity in professional wrestling. It's going to be a party October 18th here at the Hannah. So weekend tickets, they are actually going on sale this week. So check out your inboxes. If you're on the mailing list, if you're not, sign up. Yes, like I say, exciting time.
Yeah, it certainly is. And the stars keep coming to Wolverhampton. We saw so many here tonight, and we're seeing some more coming October 18th. We're going to be in Sheffield less than 2 days from now as we're filming this. So
Back tonight.
exactly.
I say a day off tomorrow, probably sleep.
And the roads were fun today, weren't they? On Friday.
I didn't get out of bed early enough. That was your problem.
That was my problem, yeah.
But you learned your lesson for Sunday. We're going to be live
At 6 a.m. to get to Sheffield, so we'll see you there. In the meantime, Andy, as always, thanks for joining me.
Thanks very much, Dave. I'm looking forward to Sheffield. Summer for a Pro continues.